Hi, I'm Christopher Warnock of Renaissance Astrology, and today I want to talk about the Shams Marif, the greatest name of God, and our new greatest name of God, Sun talismans in Lapis and silver. So let me start off with the Shams Marif. In the West, we're really most familiar with Picatrix. If we think of astrological magic or Arabic magic at all, we're thinking of Picatrix. That's really what we've heard of. But in the Islamic countries, the Shams al-Marif is much more famous and much more widely known, really renowned as an incredible book of magic. Shams al-Marif means the son of wisdom. It's attributed to the 13th century Sufi al-Buni. The scholars will dismiss it basically by saying, oh no, this is actually written in the 17th century. And of course, they think anything that's magical or spiritual is fake. But really what the test of it is how is the knowledge that it contains, the wisdom it contains, and the Shams al-Marif is really quite incredible. It contains an incredible amount of mystic lore. It's an incredible example of the Ilm al-Huruf, which is the science of letters, which is essentially the Islamic and Sufi equivalent of Kabbalistic, like gematria, number symbolism, an incredible use of letters and words and Quranic verses and all sorts of mystic and Sufi knowledge that's contained in it. So very, very popular. What people are most focused on is on magic, of course, and it's got a lot of interesting magical stuff in it. Ultimately, though, this is a spiritual text. The power that's it's laying forth, it's elucidating, is spiritual power, and that can be used for magical purposes in the sense of getting stuff that you want. But the sort of deeper focus of it is the spiritual knowledge and spiritual wisdom. So it really makes a really great meld with the devotional practice. A devotional practice, this is what I follow, is one that's really much more focused on building up a relationship with the spirits, not so much on getting specific things, not on making deals, not on forcing the spirits to do things for you, but developing this strong and positive relationship with the celestial angels that, and for many people, becomes part of their spiritual practice. So again, I said the Shams is a great melding with that because of its Sufi background and because of its underlying spiritual basis. So the greatest name of God is really an excellent example of this. And I was very excited to receive these talismans. I never know. I mean, our jeweler mage, Muhammad Ajmal in Islamabad, he is, really a master of this Islamic magic and Sufi magic. And he will just send me talismans sort of out of the blue. So it's always exciting to get a shipment from him and see what he sent to me. So he sent me these talismans, and I started looking into them and doing some more research, and I realized, wow, this is, again, sort of fell down a rabbit hole. In the Sufi and Islamic mystic view, really a key way to understand the underlying nature of reality is through words and letters. But what we think of a word and letter, which is a written word or spoken word, these are just shadows or echoes of the true letters and words that are what the underlying sort of spiritual foundation of reality. And the interaction of these words and interaction of these letters produces reality. It says in the Quran in multiple passages of Allah that says, all that he needs to do is to say be, and then something comes into existence. So this is just really underlying power, underlying spiritual nature of the cosmos. And names in particular, as a type of word, are really, really important. The true name of something expresses the true nature of a thing. And not just expresses it, is it. The name is the thing. In fact, the name is even more real than the manifestation of it. So, and we can take that even further with the 99 beautiful names of Allah. Very important in Islamic practice and theology as well. These are key names. Again, they're not just conceptions, but the true nature of the relationships they express. So, for example, Al-Rab, the Lord. This is a complete expression of all lordship, all rulership. But and what's really kind of amazing about it is that the Islamic Sufi mystic Ibn Arabi, a philosopher as well, expressed this. It says, you have Allah as the Lord. It requires a servant, the human, to be the servant. Now, and so God needs you. Without you, God is not complete in that manifestation as Lord. So you can also think of them as Platonic ideas. These are underlying relationships that bind together, that create reality. So being able to access these names, being able to interact with these names is incredibly powerful, both magically but even more spiritually. So there is an attested hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, that says if you call upon Allah by his greatest name, that your request will always be granted. So again, this is not surprising because the greatest name of Allah really expresses the true nature, the essence of the One, and therefore would be supremely powerful. So there is a lot of sort of discussion about which of the names is the greatest names. And so chapter 12 of the Shams al-Marif, I started looking into this as an extended discussion of the spiritual nature of the greatest name. It really gives a lot of information about the magical uses of it. And both for benefic and malefic purposes. And people often find this unsettling. I mean, the slightest sort of malefic stuff people tend to either run away from or run to. But really, this is the nature of any kind of power. It's like electricity. It can be used for good or ill. I mean, if someone negatively uses electricity, that doesn't make electricity evil. It's just something powerful. You need to respect it. And really, I'm a right-hand path person. I'm really going to do the benefic thing. However, and I just want to explain that in chapter 12, there was some of the stuff was so malefic that I broke my usual no censorship rule and I left it out. Now, of course, what that's going to mean is someone's going to look at that and say, "Oh, I want to know that." And it's sort of it's sort of like a drug addict. And when they hear someone has a fatal overdose of a particular drug, they're like, "Oh, I want to have some of that drug." And this is the same kind of foolishness. If you have to know that stuff, you need to get yourself your own copy of Shams in Arabic and you translate it yourself, because I'm going to stick with the benefic, at least the mildly malefic. I mean, there's, for example, I left one in there that said causing your enemy to fall asleep. I'm like, okay, that's not so bad that I'm going to totally freak out about it. It is useful to see the malefic uses as long as they're not excessively malefic. But what's really kind of exciting about the Shams al-Marif is it gives us a way to interact positively with this essence of God, with the greatest name, with these particular 7 mystic symbols. Now, there's all sorts of different permutations of them, but the Shams lays them out, gives us those symbols that we can use, and they're really wildly popular. Talismans using these 7 symbols of the greatest name are really, really popular to this day in the Islamic world. In particular, in Iran, they like to do a yellow onyx talisman with the greatest name. And they're also known as the Shams al-Sharaf, so the noble or the glorious sun. That's another name that's used for these greatest name talismans. So I said, oh my God, I was so excited to get these. And what's cool about them is we've gone ahead and used the Pick-a-Trick style supercharging. Again, like I said, using the sun. We did a full chart election, multiple talismanic factors. This is done by Muhammad using one of the elections that I provided for him. So really amazing, gorgeous talismans. Let me just show you these. You can see this blue lapis lazuli in a sterling silver setting. Just absolutely gorgeous, with the 7 symbols, 7 mystic names of God written on them. And this is the image that I'm going to provide for the consecration. You can see that at the bottom there. You can see it more clearly. That's the 7 mystic symbols of the greatest name. And this is a modern version. It's there's a lot of variations. I mean, these are manuscripts, so people are writing them by hand. Lots of variations, and there's not one one. That we've used a modern one that was attested to by Muhammad Ajmal, our mage jeweler. So one of the interesting things about the greatest name is that the typical discussion of this in Islamic circles tends to be discussion or debate about which particular name is the greatest name. And people push for different ones. They say Allah. I mean, that's the name of Allah. That's the greatest name. I've seen Rahman Rahim, the Merciful, the Compassionate. There's different selections of names. We can see that there's 7 names. Again, if you want to take a look at the page there, I've got a link to that translation of chapter 12 and also to the main Shams al-Marif page. That discusses, I have a commentary too that talks about this stuff in more detail, but you can definitely check that out. That chapter 12 is very interesting. I was so excited by the talismans that I said, I've got to go ahead and translate this. So that's why I went ahead and did that. And it was really increased my knowledge and understanding of it. And I want to make that open to everybody. That's why I put it on the webpage. But it really enriches our understanding of these talismans and how powerful they are. But what I guess the final comment I would make on them is I really like the magical quality of it, and I think that I definitely are very powerful. The Shams talks about, for example, it gives you divine protection, which makes sense, particularly against black magic. Allows you to have social interactions, particularly with rich and powerful people, with the Sultan, or someone in authority, to be able to have positive interactions with the government in a good way, particularly for health, both for preventative health and also for curing people, and then also for success and riches. So really, all around, a pretty amazing talisman. And again, I think it's really cool, really valuable for that. I found, though, it was really interesting, a Sufi website, and they were talking about the greatest name. And they gave a story about one of the Shia imams, Jafar al-Sadiq. And a man came to him and asked him to give him the greatest name. And the imam said, well, you need to go ahead and do an ablution. You need to basically take sort of like a ritual bath that you take before like praying or things like that. So he went, it was in the wintertime, so he went over to go to wash himself. And the imam sent his companions over, and they kept pushing him in the water. And the guy was really freaked out. He was afraid he wasn't getting out of the water. He was basically afraid for his life. At that point, he called out to Allah to save him, and they immediately stopped. And then the man came over to the imam and said, tell me the greatest name. And the imam said, you already know it. He says, when you called upon Allah with no thought of yourself, you're just calling out in your need for him. I said that then, that's the true greatest name of Allah. Essentially, what he's saying is that facing the self, to eliminate the self, is and then to evoke Allah. That's invoking the essence. Because if the self is there, there's no space for God in the essence. You've superimposed the self, which is a false superimposition, upon the reality that sits there. Now, and if you think about that further, people talk about killing the ego. No necessity of killing the ego, because it doesn't even exist in the first place. All you need to do is recognize its true non-existence. And then that consciousness of the true non-existence, when that consciousness is there, that is the true essence of God, is the greatest name. So again, we're really able to get an incredible amount of mystical knowledge, magical knowledge here. And there's different levels. Again, the magical is still very powerful. It's like, essentially magical is like getting what I want, causing specific effects. And it's definitely useful for that. But if we stop there, we're not getting the underlying spiritual power of it, underlying spiritual essence of it. And it's to say is that the true essence of reality is the one. The one is always present. The one is always there. And insofar as we think that we exist truly and really, other than just as a sort of functional superimposition, we're not understanding the nature of reality. If we understand the true nature of reality, then we understand that we are reality, that we are consciousness. And again, this is the true greatest name and truest invocation. So very trippy, very, very excited about this. And you can, like I said, interact with this on multiple levels. Talisman's cool. Get the talisman, has great powers. But if you think about it, if you work with it, again, this is, again, with the benefits of this devotional practice that the Sufi and the Shams al-Marif, the true spiritual content of the Shams al-Marif really comes into play, as it has this great spiritual power, and then we can see that it can be used for that. So there's really, again, there's this tendency to have this sort of magical and spiritual as being entirely separate. They're all interconnected and interblended. And whatever your true heart's desire is for, if it's for the things of the world, then you can use that for the things of the world. If your true heart's desire is for God, for Allah, for the One, and in fact to know that you're the One, then it can be used for that purpose as well. So again, very exciting. Check out our new talismans. These will probably be gone, if you're looking at this much after April of 2024, these will undoubtedly be gone. But you can certainly check out the greatest name, chapter 12 from the Shams al-Marif, and the general Shams al-Marif links that I provided below. So check those out, and I hope you'll find this as illuminating and be as excited and passionate about it as I have been.